Today's reading is Level 0.7, the Reminiscence District, from the MEG records. Retrieving MEG Level 0.7 data. Access denied. Redirecting to latest entry with permissions. Survival difficulty pending. Safety undetermined. Unsecured. Presence of entities undetermined. 7 days since we found the outpost. It's been 1 week since we found the ruins of some sort of 70s group. We don't know exactly who they were. There were quite a few groups in level 4 during that time, and it can sometimes be difficult to tell them apart. This one seemed to have quite an extensive information storage. We found hundreds of floppy disks when we looked in the filing cabinets. Whoever this group was, they knew how to store lots of information. 8 days since we found the outpost. We recently received a computer that can read floppy disks. However, it was a disappointment as most of the text in the floppy disk is corrupted and unable to be read. However, we did find some readable entries on levels 1 through 4. It seems whoever this group was, they must have had a large base on level 4. In addition to this, we found dates on several disks, most being dated from 1960 to 2000. The vast majority of the information we got today was redundant, but at least we finally got some real information on this group. 9 days since we found the outpost. At last we figured out how to run the disks. When we booted up the computer with the disk in it, it loaded the logo of the NTG. After using a similar technique to load another disk, it ran as well, though just being of a level we already have logged. Some of our elders claim to remember the group, but most only remember hearing it in passing. We don't know much about them other than the acronym NTG stands for New Traders Group, separate from the BNTG. Though somehow and hilariously we were able to convince someone it was the BNTG. We had to break it to him about 3 hours later that we were lying. P.S. The level on the disk that we found was very interesting and informative. It was on a level 0 sublevel called the Reminiscence District, a sort of time bubble for the various revisions of the backrooms over time. We haven't gotten this level in our database yet, so I'm going to work on porting that over today. 10 days since we found the outpost. Although there is a bunch of information in these old disks, we found it too risky to put them out to the public. We'd have to check and make sure the NTG wasn't a hostile organization that worked against other friendly organizations of the past. We'd rather not endorse some sort of party gore organization from the 1970s. However, if we did check them and it turns out this group was amiable, then we could put some information out. For example, we could put the Reminiscence District straight into our database. It may seem a little paranoid not to be releasing information, but we've had enough incidents in the past to be cautious. 11 days since we found the outpost. The public somehow learned about the level we found in the NTG log. Already they are protesting our lack of transparency. We ought to reconcile somehow, or else we risk mutiny and revolution. I'd rather not we lose our level 4 base, for it has been my home for many years. One of the leaders of our research group proposed that we send out an expedition to meet with the last remaining members of the NTG, even if they are unorganized and scattered now. Perhaps then we could release a bit of the organization and keep the public satisfied. 12 days since we found the outpost. We are leaving today to go to level 11. I finished packing the gear. I expect to arrive in 5 days. Hopefully we make it relatively unscathed and then are able to make it back as well. This outpost is near and dear to my house. It's the only home I've known for all my time here in the backrooms. 21 days since we found the outpost. We made it to level 11. We are lucky to have found it when we did, since some of us are badly injured and we only had a little bit of food left. We found a town willing to nurture us back to health. We'll spend the next few days asking around. I can't believe we made it. 24 days since we found the outpost. It's been a few days, and nobody we've asked has any idea where to find them, even if they have heard rumors of them in this level. It seems that their location has been lost to time. We've spent more than our fair share of time out here. Time to get back to the outpost before the situation gets more dire. 25 days since we found the outpost. Since we've had such luck finding anyone from the NTG, I suggested we send somebody out to find the level they found documented. In other words, I am now going to find the level details in their database as soon as I get back. P.S. I was not suggesting that I myself go, but it's too late to turn back. I need to shut my mouth before it gets me in even more trouble. 31 days since we found the outpost. It has now officially been a month since we first found the information. We are officially back from our expedition to level 11. I will rest for a few days before going out to verify the level. I am the most expendable after all, even though I was not volunteering myself. 39 days since we found the outpost. I've done a bit of research on the level I am going to look for as soon as I leave. Of course, all the information I've found is still up for debate since it's unverified. The NTG paper claims the level is safe, with few entities that are found only after you get deep into the level. However, there are no consistent exits to the level other than just turning around and backing out, so I will need to bring a lot of provisions and ration them meagerly. Hopefully the article is accurate. The day I find the level will be a revolutionary day for Backrooms historians. 40 days since we found the outpost. I have rested and I am leaving today. I likely won't make a log until I either return or I find the place. I apologize for the inconvenience. End log. Below is an image of the abandoned NTG outpost that was found. MEG clarification on the NTG. Who are the NTG? Addressing the rumors. Much of the following information has been recovered from the bits of information found written by the NTG and the survivors living on level 11. Rumors have spread far and wide, suggesting that the MEG has been hiding information regarding the N2G. However, not all is as it seems. For our hesitance for haphazardly spreading this information with the public is based on earlier problems when such information turns out false. Although there is a significant amount of information still unconfirmed, there is a modest amount we have been able to authenticate. The NTG, or the New Traders Group, was formed during the First Great War of the 20th century, commonly known as World War I in the front rooms. It amassed a large following of soldiers due to the instabilities fostered by the chaos of the war. The group did not discriminate its members based on what side of the war they had been conscripted to, allowing anyone, as long as they wished for the common good of backrooms wanderers, to join. Throughout the early to mid-1900s, they grew further, with thousands of members in total, which was significant because in the backrooms there were still less than 10,000 predicted people then. They were somewhat similar to how the MEG is now, gathering large amounts of information and making large trade deals with other groups of the time. However, at some point, many of their outposts, including their primary one at level 4, were repeatedly attacked by entities, leading to their fall. That concludes the information we are able to share for the moment. Thank you for your patience. Current data recovered. Level 0.7. Today's reading is Level 0.7, the Reminiscence District, from the Backrooms Wiki. Data recovered. MEG Notice. The following information is classified until further notice. MEG Notice 2. Edits will be made for consistency. Log 1. I have found myself in quite the predicament. I seem to have left the material world and gone to some sort of in-between space between the real world as I know it and hell. It feels like years I've been here, even if I know that false. Even so, I believe it would be best if I begin to write a log, both for my mind's sake and for your enrichment, to whoever may be reading this. It began, from what I can tell, 3 weeks ago. It was a regular day, one you would expect to simply have to go to work and do your daily tasks. I just arrived, ready to begin my work for the morning. At some point around 2 hours after noon, I'd gotten up to stretch my legs. At that point, I was very curious about the very recently installed lift, or elevator if you want to get specific, so I got on it with a few other people, eager to try out. The ride down was relatively without bumps, at least until the elevator neared the bottom when it started violently shaking, knocking me and everyone else in the lift, all of whom I would never see again, to the ground. The wet, yellow, carpeted ground? Of course the elevator wasn't floored with carpet, so I immediately panicked. I opened my eyes and looked up, seeing all but the first hallway in this godforsaken place. It was after the first dozen hallways that I realized that no one was in sight, and there were no more places to stop and rest. Nothing but endless hallways of yellow and dim light bulbs to console my hysteria. Miles upon miles of damp yellow hallways, sprawling corridors met with unexpected dead ends and even more unexpected turns, completely bamboozling any of my attempts to navigate. Hell, even the little piece of paper I had been trying to map my way with was already completely scribbled out, even after what seemed like only a few minutes. It was completely terrifying. The place was so large it couldn't have been created by humanity, and yet it clearly was reminiscent of modern human architecture. It was strangely beautiful. Dreadfully, existentially beautiful. After a day, the panic really set in. This was no dream, and there was no escape from this place. I had a very limited water supply, with only a large flask about 3/4 full. I began to wish I were anywhere else, even more than I had earlier, with my stomach hungrily awaiting any sustenance to satisfy itself with. In fact, I even began to imagine the sounds of footsteps around the corner, simply hoping for any little thing my desperate mind could try to cling to entertain itself with. I spent another day wandering around, wishing for anything at all. I was met only with more damn wall, and yet still more wall. Then as I was walking down another hallway, staring listlessly at a wall, I noticed something peculiar. The aforementioned wall I had so long been staring at looked quite strange, especially when directly compared to the walls I had been looking at earlier. The walls seemed to be in two, both fighting for the space of one. It was interesting, and I was curious. Who wouldn't be? But I was too curious. I touched my hand to the wall, immediately feeling an incredible pull. After a quick reflection that this must have been straight out of a science thriller, I let it pull me haphazardly forward, deeper and deeper. 1972 NTG Outpost Archives. Researching for a Better Tomorrow. Survival difficulty, Class 2, Unsafe, Secure, and Low Entity Count. Level 0.7 is a sublevel of Level 0, which has somehow preserved instances of Level 0, ranging all the way back from the Egyptian times, with many of these various sections looking completely different from the Level 0 most are familiar with today. Due to its incredible size, this level has been deeply but not thoroughly explored. Furthermore, with the blocked exits and the lack of any sustaining food and water to consume, the safest thing to do when encountering this level unequipped is to just turn around and walk out. A recent experiment has led to the discovery of other ancient hidden backrooms level segments. The blocked exits used in this test appear as strobing lights, similar to those seen on a no-signal screen of an old TV. In this test, a researcher used an excess of dynamite and blew open one of these supposed sealed-off exits and found a perfectly preserved 200-meter radius of level 1 with the same time period as the area they were currently in before it abruptly switched back to the everyday times of now. More research will need to be done to figure out the extent of these ancient bubbles later. 1981 NTG Outpost Archives. Description: The Backrooms is an ever-changing beast, always evolving and switching itself up. Records of the backrooms from times long past have been found, alluding to the steady change of progression of technology in the backrooms. Now, our most convincing evidence is the existence of Object 13. This object was formerly a typewriter, but now this object seems in the process of evolving, with any instance of the object interacting with turning into a computer module. Although many parts of the backrooms are currently evolving, this evolution doesn't remain fully constant across all levels. Some levels, such as the topic of today's level, are unaffected by this phenomenon. This results in strange time bubbles that remain, even if their surroundings appear completely different from everything else. In some instances, these areas grow big enough to be considered a full sublevel, such as the case with level 0.7. Level 0.7 has many inherent similarities to level 0. One such similarity is the atmosphere and feel of the level. In each section, there are long, isolating yellow hallways with a certain buzz in your ears that you just can't seem to get rid of. This level is less of an escape from level 0 and more of a continuation. Some areas of level 0 have been preserved for a very long time compared to the rest of the level. However, not all of these areas got frozen at the same time, leading to a vast collection of different areas, all from different time periods. In fact, this sublevel is still expanding, preserving our version of level 0 for future generations. Next will be a basic description of when the various zones in the sublevel were in use by the regular level 0. This sublevel has 6 main identifiable areas, and one that we have yet to research, the one that has been in use since 1950, which is what the regular level 0 is in right now. Then it has a zone that spanned from the Victorian ages all the way till after World War II, which was around from 1800 to 1940. Deeper in, wanderers encounter the Renaissance to medieval section, which is found from 1400 to 1800. Yet another Dark Age segment is found to be a bit deeper than the previous, aging from 500 to 1400. This section being a collection of dungeon corridors, with some exposed to light. The fifth section is a Roman area that was in use from 500 BC to 580. The final section that has been found consists primarily of long, winding Egyptian hallways. It was first used starting in 4000 BCE, and was used all the way until 500 BC. Although many of these sections vary greatly from level 0, there are a significant number of things that stay the same throughout all of the areas. For example, in all of the areas, there is always some sort of uncomfortable buzzing, combined with an inescapable yellow hue. Also, the geometry is famously inconsistent, making some distances far farther than they have any right to be. This creates a dangerous area, further reiterated by it having an entity population, a difference from the one in level 0, which has no entities at all. All of the information able to be found in level 0.7 leads to even further exploration of this level, making this place great for archaeology. However, with all the danger found here, funding or well-stocked wanderers are necessary for any attempt at a successful trek into level 0.7. Certain groups, like the NTG or the GPD, send many wanderers in to research what the backrooms could have looked like in the past and what the people were like in the past. Hopefully, and with time, level 0.7 will be discovered and documented in its entirety, but for now, there is little more information to be had. Once I finally landed after being pulled through the odd wall conglomeration, I noticed an odd difference in the yellow place. The ceiling, rather than being lit by light bulbs, were covered in both lanterns and candles. It was an odd change, but I figured it was fine. I spent 2 days wandering deeper into that place. My water supply dwindled to less than half. I dreaded the day where I ran out of water, but in the meantime I walked forward, hoping to find another one of the odd walls. Perhaps there was some way it could bring me home. I needed food, having not eaten for 4 days. It was incredibly draining not having anything to eat. In fact, it wasn't only draining, it was dangerous. The amount of water I had been rationing myself would have been barely enough to sustain me normally, but in this scenario, where I walked all day, it wasn't even close to the amount I needed. However, in the meantime, while I was panicking about food, I passed by strange but wonderful places. As I went in deeper, the environment changed. The wallpaper changed from a generic yellow to a fancy Victorian. The ceiling rose up, creating seemingly infinitely tall rooms, reaching up far into the sky. Some ceilings even had fancy chandelier lights, though I shouldn't have been surprised, especially considering all the other things I'd seen. Soon, even the Victorian wallpaper began to fade, turning to a more Renaissance-styled plaster. That wasn't the only thing that changed either, as the sounds I had previously attributed to my imagination began to manifest even louder and more dominantly than before. That was odd, considering I had yet to see another person at this point. And then I realized something. That was no person. With a momentary whimper, I started to run, faster than I had since the Great War. Then I saw it. A filthy abomination, seemingly human from a distance, but up close. Indescribably disturbing. Its face had no eyes for its empty eye sockets, and its arms were oddly shaped, coming out of strange places, one out of its abdomen, the other out of its neck. The only thing on its mostly empty face was a set of empty eye holes. It gave chase, willing me to run even faster. Evidently, it was not going to abandon its pursuit. Even so, I kept running, even if I knew I wasn't going to last for much longer. Then, with an awful pound to the ground, the footsteps behind me stopped. I looked back to see the faceless creature sprawled all over the ground, with limbs seemingly cut clean off, not even a drop of blood falling. I do believe now that I was lucky to live through that in this living hell. But then, my heart pounded so hard I thought I was just going to pass out. Thus I put up another shelter and rested, thankful but very frightened. Sections. There are many sections. Here is a list and description of them all. 1950 to now. This level isn't uniform across the entire thing, but there are multiple separate layers and different sections. The first section of this level has been around since the year 1950, and is still continuing even now. Due to its very simple appearance, with buzzing fluorescent lights and a simple yellow wallpaper design, this design is expected to continue for at least another 100 years. This layer is strikingly similar to the regular version of Level 0, and even acts as the entrance to this sublevel. However, this section may also be the reason this subsection is sparsely discovered by accident, as it is hard to tell apart from Level 0. Many people may encounter Level 0.7 and just walk straight out of it. Although this section is largely the same as the regular Level 0, there are a few key differences. For example, any exits that would have been present are blocked off by the strange material that looks like the old TV no-signal screens. Also, the strange phenomena that scrambles wanderers if they sleep in this level is present as well. For the most part, only the most well-seasoned adventurers will be able to identify the sublevel when they see it. 1800 to 1950 CE. This section of Level 0.7 is very recognizable for its use of light bulbs and candles and strange lack of electrical outlets. This level is an archive of Level 0 from 1800 to 1949, and it differs enough from modern Level 0 that it is when most people realize they have left the regular Level 0. This is likely because the rooms become much dimmer and the lights look nothing like the regular ones. This part of Level 0 is much more dangerous than the previous. The candles and incandescent light bulbs make this area a prime target for fires if disturbed. Also, the slightly fancier wallpaper also uses paint that, studies have shown, is toxic if ingested, with similar properties to lead. This area still keeps many of the properties of Level 0, even if it is beginning to look a lot different. The isolating phenomenon Level 0 is infamous for is present, even if it begins to wane as wanderers explore deeper into the section. The deeper into this section wanderers delve, the fewer light bulbs will appear, being replaced with candles. In addition to this, the wallpaper will also change slightly, becoming more ornate. Wanderers are discouraged to continue onwards if this begins happening unless they are well equipped for the journey ahead. 1800 to 1400 CE. This next section completely forgoes electricity, opting for either torches or candles. This increases the already high likelihood of fire. The common characteristics that are always in Level 0 stay: the yellow-tinted walls, the strange buzzing, this time the torchlight flickering, and the feeling of isolation. This place, however, includes a significant amount of Victorian and Renaissance architecture. The walls regularly have very fancy wallpaper, and infrequently have tapestries of different entities doing oddly out-of-place things, playing an instrument, for example. In addition to this, some rooms have immeasurably high ceilings that give most a strong feeling of awe when they see it. However, here is where the isolating phenomena begin to break down, leading to it being possible to encounter entities here, even if most generally steer clear of this place. This also makes it technically possible to see other people here, even if meeting up is nearly impossible. Attempts have been made, with most ending in a skin-stealer encounter from intercepted signals. 1400 to 500 CE. This part of Level 0.7 is oddly self-explanatory. It appears as a series of long castle corridors, containing strangely yellow stones. This area is the darkest yet, containing only torches, with the occasional lantern lighting the way for the wanderers. Strangely, even with the fires, it is about 15 degrees Celsius here, significantly colder than any of the previous areas. The stones the walls are made out of hold a similar substance to that found in the 1900s wallpaper. Be careful when making contact with the walls. Although some may attempt to take a torch or lantern with them, they are strangely bolted to the walls and roofs they are found on, being nearly impossible to take off with bare hands. However, if someone somehow did take them off, likely requiring heavy power tools that would have needed being well packed, likely making the lights redundant anyway, they would have immediately gone out, becoming brittle the moment they leave the wall. This section also sees an influx of ancient entity population, making tarrying here quite dangerous. Most tend to hide in dark corners or rooms without any light sources. It is recommended to leave them alone and not to engage. 500 BC to 500 CE. Not even the backrooms could escape the reach of the Roman Empire, with this becoming one of the largest sections in this whole level. Sprawling marble hallways, dotted with awe-inspiring marble pillars that reach hundreds of meters into the sky. This area also includes many enormous rooms, with odd statues. The statues portray, for the most part, abstract shapes and unknown entities. However, some are detailed depictions of some entities we still see today. Some statues also seek to emulate those commonly found in the Fete rooms, with twisted representations of many historical figures being a theme. Since there are many rooms in this section, many were curious what was at the top of the endlessly tall rooms. So they found a long enough room and lifted off with a biplane. After quite a long journey, they found their way into level 6 after the light began to dim for a while. More research will be conducted. 500 CE to 4000 BCE. The area in this sublevel, resembling the time before widespread civilization, was, for the most part, a collection of long, winding stone halls. Unlike the previous Dark Age section, this part appears Egyptian. On the walls, engravings appear on various subjects, all of them eerie but strongly encoded, with none able to be deciphered. The entity population flourishes here, with more than most would commonly find in level 1. There are dozens of ancient species of hounds, smilers, here known as growlers, and skin stealers. These are the last hidden examples of the ancient entities unupdated. Don't engage them, just walk away. Yet still, the concept that is a loud, mind-numbing, buzzing noise adapts in this section, turning into the sound of scarab wings. The source of this sound is unknown, but some research parties claim to have seen the ancient death moths as a source. However, this would not logically follow, as there couldn't have been any entities in this segment of level 0.7 when it was most recent. Pre-humanity. Although no research party has been able to make it out so far, there are still quite a few unconfirmed theories regarding what level 0 looked like before. The vast majority believe in 3 main explanations. Keep in mind that all of these theories are completely without true, explanatory evidence and may yet be disproven. Also, it isn't impossible for some of these theories to coexist, as a few of these ideas seem to be built from different times in human development. The first theory is of a deeply yellow cave system. This place would have hundreds, if not thousands, of winding branches and hallways, with the eerie sound of water dripping to support any wanderers along their journey forward. All jokes put to rest, this is one of the less unpleasant of the possibilities, at least compared to the next. The next theory follows a desert, covered in a thick sandstorm, surrounded by valleys. Now, if this theory happens to be the correct one, let this not be emphasized enough. Do not go there. This section would be completely uninhabitable for any or all life and must be left immediately. The third and final theory comes from our public input. What if the mysterious missing section happened to just be a forest lit by fireflies? Now this would be incredibly optimistic, but it does have a significant possibility of being true. Of the 3 theories, most believe in the cave theory simply because of its similarities to the rest of the sections, and especially the Egyptian segment of level 0.7. Level Archaeology. Due to its nature, level 0.7 has a prospering community at the ready to send in research parties into it. This level's archaeological scene is further supported by its relatively safe surroundings and easy access. Because of this, dozens of different discoveries have been made from it too. In fact, it was the primary source during the debates about whether the backrooms evolved or if each level was simply replaced when necessary. Additionally, this level plays a large part in many of today's group's economies, making income possible for the average wanderer when they may need it. This can be the saving grace for many who, without further water, would otherwise die. This also introduces many to the research scene, further boosting our goal to document all of this place. The hardest part about the trip was finding places to go to the bathroom, was reportedly the response from one participant when asked about what they found most dangerous. Similarities and contrariwise. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people have fallen into the backrooms and found the original level 0. However, the number of people who made their way into level 0 unassisted is in the single digits. This may be partly due to the similarities level 0.7 has with level 0. Despite all the similarities to level 0, level 0.7 has many differences, even apart from the obvious time differences. Similar to level 0, The permanent, mind-numbing atmosphere with buzzing noises and an unending yellow tint is omnipresent throughout. Additionally, food is simply not present, even deeper into the sublevel. The isolating phenomena, at least near the topmost layers, are also present, thus ending plans for any bases or multi-person research groups. This point, however, is where the similarities between the two levels end. For the deeper wanderers go, the more cracks appear in the supposed symmetry between the two levels. In deeper areas, it becomes possible to meet up with other people and other things. Attempts have been made to meet up with other people, all ending disastrously. Moreover, while Level 0 has dozens of exits, all of what would have been exits in Level 0.7 are blocked off by a strange material of flashing colors. This makes exploration undoubtedly more difficult to safely explore, for getting trapped is no common occurrence for the average wanderer. All of these differences compound to make a level that is noticeably more dangerous than Level 0, even if research still prospers there. As I continued forward, the Renaissance tapestries that covered the walls soon faded, being replaced by even older depictions in art, creating rooms that wouldn't seem out of place in a medieval castle. 2 days after I entered the medieval section, I ran out of water. It was finally the moment I had dreaded for so long. I knew I wouldn't survive for long without it. However, there was nothing to do but continue forward and pray. I, of course, lacking the means to get any further water, was desperate. It can't end like this, I would think. After all these years, even after fighting in the Great War, my life was ended by this? I continued forward, my hope dwindling. It was about a day after I ran out of water that I knew what I was doing then couldn't be right. Moving forward had done nothing for me but waste time. I could do it no longer. Even though I knew I wouldn't make it out, I turned backwards, going more out of principle than anything. The old reliable method could burn in hell for all I'd cared. I became dizzy, with any effort to do anything taking more time than I could spare, both due to the groggy state of my mind and my fatigued limbs, which did little more than slow me down at that point. There came a time when I realized I could take no more, and so I simply collapsed, not even bothering to make the simplest of shelters. Even now I'm surprised I made it out of there. I would have expected myself to have died then. However, when I somehow woke up, I was just on the border of the candlelit section, and the light bulb one. My luck didn't end there, though, as I was right next to another one of the odd-looking walls. I shook with glee, grateful for my luck. Then I jumped in. I found myself in a strange, intimate automobile parking and horse-hitching station complex. There's plenty of food and water to be found here, even if I've seen some awful creatures in this district of hell. Soon, however, I eventually found myself in a smaller room, outside of the regular, large open areas. It was here that I found this typewriter. I shall continue to travel, in the hopes of finding safety. Sadly, I must leave this typewriter behind. I can only hope for the best, both for myself and whoever may read this in the future. Now I just need to reach civilization if there is any. Night terrors. On this level, certain phenomena happen while sleeping. If a person happens to fall asleep on this level, a variety of different things may happen. The effects of sleeping can range from minor disorientation all the way to a complete change in location. At worst, the affected wake up thousands of kilometers away from where they began in a completely different zone. There are multiple ways to prevent this. For example, if one wishes to remain in the same section, they should keep a roof above their head and stay covered. What's more, if a wanderer wants to stay in the area they are in, another way to prevent the warping is to carry an object related to their current section. Although using an object is not guaranteed, it does provide an extra layer of security. This happens because the section one will end up in partly depends on the objects they are carrying with them. If a wanderer carries an object from a specific time period, for example an Egyptian figure, they may end up being sent to that time period. However, this isn't well documented and is still almost as random as just doing it without any objects from a time period. Many of those curious about the source of this phenomenon have attempted to wake up and catch whatever being perpetrated this. However, all attempts with this ended with only partial success, because as soon as they wake up, they catch a glimpse of the hallways rapidly changing, then stopping the moment they are able to process this change. Experts suggest that it likely isn't actually the level changing, rather the afflicted moving on an axis incomprehensible by third-dimensional beings such as us. Many researchers have tried to take advantage of this, each with varying degrees of success. Some make it exactly where they want to end up, and others are never heard from again, presumed dead. It is very difficult to stress just how dangerous this phenomenon can be if used excessively or even a reasonable amount. One particularly interesting expedition in the ancient area of the level was only possible due to the sleeping phenomenon. The researcher was able to make it back to tell the tale. They even got a surprisingly high-quality picture of a growler. While wanderers are not recommended to try this unless they are well equipped, some professionals have been able to get stellar results. I was in a quiet little alcove and I thought, a little rest couldn't hurt. Next thing I knew, I was running for my life away from an ancient growler, a story told by an explorer who experienced this warping. Prehistoric entity species. Entities evolving and changing has already been extensively covered by others, but this level seems to serve as a safe haven for the de-evolved version of these entities. In fact, ancient versions of smilers, known as growlers, have been observed in the deeper sections of this level. Growlers take on an animal resemblance to regular smilers with the exception of their cat eyes and lion fangs. Very few are still alive, and as such, they are considered an endangered species with only a few thousand left, which in the backrooms isn't a lot. Even though there are only a few thousand left, they are still hostile and extremely violent. Don't expect these creatures to treat you different simply because there are less of them left. Growlers are not the only endangered ancient species who have sought out refuge in level 0.7. There are also the ancient ancestors of skin stealers, hounds, and multiple facelings, who strongly resemble clumps. These aren't the only species, but the most important to discuss. Hounds didn't used to be so oddly human, as the ancient ancestors of them in this sublevel seemed a lot more animal, with the face of an ape. This led to much more agility on their part, even if they lost a lot of their essential intelligence. The facelings one will find in this sublevel are not quite as distinguished as those most would see now. No images exist, so the only accurate descriptions come from first-hand accounts. They appear wildly deformed, with their limbs sometimes being wildly off-center, enough to make the faint of heart dizzy when they are seen. However, different from their modern equivalent, these creatures are much more quick to become angry. Don't approach these with the same peace of mind that one may have with regular facelings. Be careful, and don't get caught unaware. Skin stealers come in two varieties, the former common four-legged, and the slightly rarer two-legged variety which has become the standard version today with the four-leggeds rarely being sighted, and even more rarely being believed in. They looked largely the same as they do today, as they are a much more monstrous kind of beast. Each one of these different species could have an entire entity log written about them, but there just isn't time or space in this level log. In fact, there are so many more species of entities recorded in this level that they deserve a report in and of itself. Fires. The risk of fire in this level is very high due to the open flames and oil lanterns scattered in many of the sections. To prevent fires, stay away from any of these hazards as the level seems to have a way to regulate itself. It is suggested to always place shelters away from fires or light sources to prevent danger one may put themselves in accidentally. Statistically, fires pose the greatest risk to wanderers in the earlier sections of the level. These fires also pose a risk to the research of level 0.7, as entire sections have been burned down in the past. In fact, there is a rumored Mesopotamian sector that has completely disappeared due to these fires. Bases, outposts, and communities. None. Similar to level 0, no two wanderers can meet at the same time. However, there are a number of groups sending expeditions into level 0.7. Some of these groups are the NTG. The NTG sends expeditions into this level infrequently. They are mainly searching for more information about the past. Be cautious about meeting others in this level, since the number of people is disproportionately small when compared to the number of entities. It is far more likely to be a skin stealer. Experts suggest running would be the best in this situation. The GPD, or General Public Database. This group sends paid researchers into this level. They are friendly and are willing to help any wanderers who end up in their facilities. Entrances and exits. Entrances. There are two main ways to enter this level. Wanderers may traverse level 0 until their surroundings begin to look older, i.e., incandescent light bulbs, stone walls, and more. One may no-clip into this level, but this shouldn't generally be relied on. Exits. There are two ways to exit this level. Turn back around and walk back into level 0 or wander towards the more modern sections of the level until it gradually fades into level 0 again. If a hole is blown in one of the glitchy walls, it will open up to 100 meters of an ancient version of the level it leads to, then revert back to the regular level. 1981 NTG Outpost Archives. Log 3. I've been traveling for months and I finally found civilization. I've been all over what the people who live in this outpost call the Backrooms. I've been traveling for months and I finally found civilization. I've been all over what the people who live in this outpost call the Backrooms. I believe I found a place I can stay for good. I went through the first few districts as I hear they are called here, i.e. districts 0, 1, 2, and 3. Now I have found my way to District 4. The inhabitants of this town are unsure where I ended up in right after the yellow hallways. I volunteered to write a simple paragraph describing the level so I can be recognized again. James T. Corlane. District 0.7. This district appears very similar to the regular District 0, only changing once you venture deeper in. Deeper in, there are the older versions of District 0, from all the way back in ancient Egypt to modern candlelit hallways. In this level, sleeping can be hazardous if uncovered. In addition to this, entities appear if you go too deep, landing this district firmly in the unsafe category. MEG Revised Level 0.7. This article is written by T-Dragon from the Backrooms Wiki.